And we're live. Hello, everyone. It's Matt, it's Daniel, and it's myself, Robert. We're having our regular meeting, this time a little bit earlier than usual, because I would like to meet Ecosia, the green search engine here in Berlin tonight. You can still have a meeting if you want at 7 p.m. later on, but I will not be available. Shall we maybe start with some of you? Daniel, Matt, one of you worked on RFM? Daniel, you also had some questions?
Yeah, some about RFM and some about databases. I'll share my screen. So I've done this last week. I moved the button, as you told me, to reset the search.
Yeah.
So, now it's 3 columns, but where I have a problem, that's a component, and I cannot get it to work. If I try to, it probably should work now. So it gives me this error, search action is not a function. I will show you the controller because I have it in find broadcasts JS 60, line 60. 1 second.
So to give you one feedback, I would not use the reload icon for the button to reset the filter, but something like a cross, like really delete something.
All right, yeah, I just had this. So
maybe also like give it a little bit more space between the search edit field and the rest. So you can, I would now think I'm only resetting the search, not also the filters. So if you just have a little bit space between it, I think that makes it clear.
So you mean here?
Yeah.
To have a I tried how it will look like. Yeah, it's just a proof of concept because I wanted to have three columns. So it makes sense.
All right.
So find broadcasts JS. So basically, it's this function, that sort action. This one works.
We cannot see your editor. I'm only seeing your browser window.
Sorry.
Don't worry.
Are you still using VLC?
Sorry?
Are you still using VLC?
No, I just disconnected one monitor.
I'm still using VLC, but I was pairing with Peter on the weekend, and he was like, "Wait, you do that every time you want to share your screen?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
What's the problem? Can you tell me?
Like I don't know all distributions of Linux, but like Ubuntu, for example, like there's difficulty in sharing like just your monitor instead of sharing. Like you either have the choice to share everything, or you have the choice to share like one window instead of like an entire screen.
That's strange.
Yeah.
Does it have to do with Wayland, maybe?
I don't know. I don't know really what it's to do with. Do you know?
Because I'm on Xorg and I don't have these issues. And I know that Ubuntu or everything which is running on GNOME has Wayland, and I had some difficulty sometimes with Wayland. I was trying out Wayland on Arch and set up everything on my own, and I had these difficulties sometimes. Like
so can you share just one monitor?
Yes.
Okay, because I cannot share as well.
Xorg.
I don't know. It's just assumption.
Yeah, well, I have heard that it's an issue with GNOME, so like I think
I don't use GNOME. I use i3, and I think it's Xorg as well. So and I cannot share.
I'm using Xorg, and I'm using i3, and still I can share different.
So like here, I got I can either now I got one monitor, but when I got two, so one is on top of the other, or it depends, how I have it set up. But I cannot choose one of them.
Okay. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's also my machine, but I rarely have another desktop. Another display, and so maybe I'm not aware of this problem.
Yeah, so it's a problem. Okay, so now can you see my editor?
Yes.
I try to make it a bit larger.
Okay, so the Fine Broadcast JS controller is probably not the best quality of code, or not the.
Yeah, but it's something simple. Basically, this button calls this function, this sort action, and I took this code, I think, from other controller, just pasted it here, but I have it. You got here this search action, and it's called this function, and I have this this function here. So normally, I assume this should work, but it's not finding like this action.
Yeah, I'm also assuming this should work. So, for the record, the controller part of Fine Broadcasts is not the most idiomatic code, as I said. There's probably a lot to refactor. However, are you absolutely sure that the search action function only appears in this particular file and not in the component?
In the I don't
know.
What does because this gives me this error. So yeah.
Yeah, but maybe it's not only in Fine. Okay. So it's on line 60, yeah?
Yeah.
Sort action.
Yeah, it's a bit different here because line 60 is the end. So yeah, but
maybe it's because this is different. Maybe this is, or I'm not quite sure. Because you're calling it from the component that does the sorting, right? But
yeah, but the component takes it like I don't know how it works. Like if you got a component inside a partial, and if you have some actions in the parent, can the child use the functions?
Yeah, usually yes. So you have like an action available on a controller as you see it here.
I'll show you. Yeah, I'll show you this broadcast search. No, it's broadcast sort. HBS. Okay, so it is here. No.
Yeah, somewhere in here it's no, it's not in broadcast sort HBS. It's where broadcast sort is used. Yeah, that's set sort, and then it's using. Okay, now you this is the template of the component, but you have to check out the template where the component is used. So probably.
So it will be broadcast search, probably.
If that
no. I move because I have this problem because I moved it here to the type where the title is. I got the title, and then I've added another column. And call it from here. So it's called from the Fine Broadcast, partial. It's called from here.
And the sort action is still defined on the controller.
Yeah, it's.
So that should actually work. Because the action, this is like an object, and in the template you call action, and then you give it the name of the action, sort action, and it will return this particular function here.
Yeah, I just I copied this this function because it wasn't in the Find Broadcast, it was in the broadcast search before in the controller, I think, because the buttons were here, so I've copied it from here and just pasted there. and that's why it's
So
not working.
sort action was defined on the component broadcast search. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And you just moved it from there and moved it up to the front broadcast controller.
Yeah. And as you see, there's no search action here in this, just in the parent. This is taken from this find broadcast. Yeah, it's the first one.
But why do you would want? So can you show me broadcast search again? The component broadcast search.
Yeah, because that's just one line, and I wanted
No,
to.
that's like the template. Could you show me this component?
Okay.
Yeah. So why does it have a sort action method now?
Because I haven't deleted it yet.
Then delete it entirely. We don't need it here. Exactly. So we have search and filter. This is fine.
So should I try it? Maybe I try it.
Yeah, it probably will not. It will not make a difference. We just removed code that's not used anymore, right?
Yeah.
So when I try to debug it, I'm just tracking where does the method gets called. So search adjacent.
Okay. Yeah. So it's still the same. So.
Yeah. I was expecting this. So Focus.js has the sort action. The sort action is passed to the sort component, correct? Can you show me where sort action is passed to the component in find broadcast handlebars template? There. Super strange. This should work. It's exactly the same line as in the component broadcast search, correct? So apparently the component, if you pass a component action to the subcomponent, it behaves different from if you have the root template and you pass a controller action to a component. What happens if you...
Should I change the name or something else?
Yeah, maybe you just maybe change the name, yeah.
So there was a search.
I mean, you're sorting. No. Don't use search action. That's also defined. So just name it differently. Maybe it's just something very silly, like call it just sort, action sort.
Okay, I leave it like that.
Or it's action.
Yeah. Okay. So.
Yeah. Now define the method section on the controller. Let's see what happens.
Controller find broadcast.
I mean, this is strange, right, Matt? This is really strange. No, you can just rename sort action to section.
Section.
Yeah. There's a trailing comma. The comma has to be removed. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, first, and we back here.
Search action is not a function.
Yeah, because we calling now.
You clicked on it just now?
Yeah. I just clicked on it.
Okay.
Oh.
So the calling of
So when it's trying to call it on line 56 is where it's getting.
Yes. Not 60. It is 56. I don't know why.
Can you console log search action on between line 55 and 56? So I don't know why it's not working at the moment. So maybe I think we're missing something very stupid or very subtle. And I just don't know why this behaves like that. Or it could also be something like a confusion with this keyword. Probably that's.
Okay, so now when I click. It's undefined. Okay. So
Why is it undefined? Why on earth is it undefined?
Yeah, like this .get search action is returning undefined, right? Question view is why.
What happens if you send instead of get?
Send?
Yeah. This send, and you remove the let, and then you just put in this filter params thing.
Again. Here, should I remove this? Yeah.
Yeah, you need you just put in the filter params and put it on line 55. Yeah, undo the. We still need the. This is just fine.
Okay.
This get filter params.
Okay.
So instead of this .send search action, this .send filter params.
This .send filter params here.
Or
No. This .send search action is fine. So I want to trigger the search action from line 55, but instead of getting it and send, I have maybe the actions inside the controller are just not available because I cannot see on this page.
There's a search
any
action.
like it's a self-reference, right? Like you're using the controller as an object, and maybe like an object from object-oriented programming, and maybe that's the problem. Like you have to send an action, a controller action, to trigger. Like if you want to trigger a controller action from another controller action, maybe you have to use send. And I guess the search action also needs some params. I think you can put in the params as second argument.
Okay, so what should I do? Because
on line 55, put a comma and then put the params as a second argument.
Yeah.
So you mean this filter params, or or ascending, or?
And you just put in the what's between the parentheses on line 57. No. It's like that. Yeah, that's also it should work. Yeah, I mean ascending is one of the keys, and then you remove line 56 and 57, and you can remove the variable search action. Yeah, we don't need that. Do we have anywhere in the code a controller action triggering another controller action? I don't know.
I couldn't find. I don't know. It's still a bit, complicated for me. Yeah. So now
It's not doing anything, huh? It's also not such. It's not sorting it ascending, because I mean Astrid linking is cool because it started with A.
Yeah, but then it's side.
No, that's definitely wrong. But we also don't get any error.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's strange. Can you reload the page? So making sure. Also, what's about this manifest error all the time? No, it doesn't do anything. Why doesn't it? So this doesn't make any this doesn't make any sense either. So at least I should see. Yeah, put in a console log just to make sure that something's happening. Why are we using search action at all?
I've just copied this,
Yeah. But hang on for a second. Why is sort actually? So search engine is setting a couple of properties, and then because okay. So I think here's the code smell. So search action works like that. It's just setting a couple of properties, and the controller params are referencing the URL params. The route has, if you, okay, check out the route of find broadcasts.
You mean in the console or?
No, in your editor.
Here.
So in Ember, you have a route and a controller.
So
and the route is responsible for fetching data from the backend. Right, so somewhere in here we have, no, not the router.js. There's a file in the folder routes and then find broadcasts.
Okay.
It's in source or app, I think. It's in the same folder where we have the controllers. Yeah, just close controllers and then go to routes. It's on the same level as controllers. There we have the folder routes. And there's also, in the directory layout, it's just the same. You have find broadcast there. Cool. And we can see that query params, we have a couple of query params, sort, queue, medium, station, page. So once the sort changes, it's refreshing it's sending another backend request. So what does happen if you don't run such action at all? If you just set the filter params and leave it like that? Because setting the filter params should be enough, in my opinion. Like, why is it even using search action? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Search action is just doing it's just setting the sort.
Yeah,
it's setting other things as well, but
yeah, it's doing many things at a time. And if you go back to the controller, maybe we can, since you split up search from sort, those two methods should also not just call themselves, right? So search action should only set the queue and set page 1. Yeah, we have to copy that. But sort should go there.
Okay, yeah, sort, not queue.
Yeah, and maybe set page 1, that should also be there.
Set page 1.
And that we put on top.
This what I deleted now? No. No. This goes away.
And why does it, I mean, you can see on the method 34 search action that filter params appears to be an object. It has a couple of properties, including sort, queue, medium, station.
Yes.
So calling search action with a string wouldn't do anything except it should return, it should trigger an exception that would mean like there's no undefined property sort on string on line number 35.
Yeah, but the problem that it wasn't, even getting to this point.
Yeah. So set sort, I think you can put in direction instead of filter params.sort. And 54 filter params.sort doesn't make a sense. Maybe just remove it. Just remove that line and remove the console log and remove the send search action. And then let's see what happens.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, now it's working. Yippee.
Nice. Is it supposed to make that that search icon spin?
It's when it's loading.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it spins when you look for something, probably.
Yeah, it's like it's spinning every time. It's also from the old state, right? So we should have the spinning icon somewhere else, not in the search field, probably.
Yeah.
So the spinning icon is for anything you do. So the spinning icon is waiting for the request to the backend to finish. So
Yeah.
every time you just change something, either you just change the sorting, you search for something, or you have the filter. It's doing something.
I just added a package called loading overlay, React loading overlay. I don't know, maybe you probably don't need a package for that, but like,
yeah, maybe a good place would be this icon that's doing the reset. If you could put the loading icon there,
All right.
maybe.
Okay, I'll try.
Or maybe you put it next to the title.
I try what works best. Okay. So.
Yeah, and also maybe try to make a reason of my strange coding in this find broadcast controller. Why did I put everything in one method search action? Like what was my intention of putting of funneling everything in this one method?
Because it was in separate controller. It wasn't here in this controller.
Was it just like I want to pass one method down the component hierarchy, and since you moved some subcomponents one level up, it doesn't make a sense to separate, like to put everything in one method that you pass down in your component?
Yeah, probably, because this was, in this find broadcast, you got broadcast search, and inside broadcast search, you could, I think there was this broadcast sort, but I took the broadcast sort to, to one level up, from broadcast search to find broadcast.
Yeah. I'm trying to make sense of my own source code, like what I wrote. So
are you certain it was you that wrote it?
Say it again?
Are you certain it was you that wrote it?
Yeah, I'm certainly. And I know I can remember that the find broadcast controller was especially terrible code. Like I was also due to the fact that I was implementing this controller at when I was not really aware of Amber. Like I didn't know much about it, so it's old code, and I wasn't. It was my first project with Amber, and this is part of the oldest part of the whole application. So at the time, I was probably not aware of all the features of Amber. Yeah, it should be cleaned up and refactored. Right now, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So I think this should work. Maybe you can try out what happens if you filter for things. Does the filter get removed if you change the sorting now? What happens if you click on the sorting? Okay, so the filter remains. I mean, it doesn't look so bad. It looks okay from the behavior. Yeah. Maybe we can just keep it like that.
Oh, 1 second, I have a phone call.
All right.
Hello.
I'm glad that that we got that sorted.
Okay.
In the meantime, while Daniel's taking his phone call, Matt, maybe there's some updates from your side.
Not really. I mean, I specifically wanted to join today because you had mentioned about pairing with your friend, Federico.
Francesco.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just having coffee with him, and he's working at a company, and the company assigned him a task to work on an unrelated open source project and get a pull request accepted as part of the training.
Okay, I'm back.
So you suggested RFM or human connection. I'm assuming it doesn't need to be Ruby, but
He is a Rails developer, and he's free to do whatever he wants. And I was just having a coffee break with him and explaining many open source projects that I'm active in, not only RFM or Human Connection, also other things. There are about 4 open source projects I can think of right now where I'm active in. Well, yeah, Daniel has returned. Daniel, so glad that we got that sorted. Literally sorted.
Yeah.
Pardon the pun.
Yeah. Any more questions? You said you had a couple of questions, also not related to RFM.
Yeah, I started a small project on my own, and I just wonder how it's best to implement. Like I got, let's say, can you see this? That's permits to work. It's basically it's a formula, and I want to, they are really similar, but sometimes you got like 10 different names, or I want to use images for that. So, but depending on the permit, you will have some of them, marked, some not. And I wonder, should I have like 10 columns in a database with Boolean values, or should I store it somewhere else? Like you can have byte string in a database.
I think this is the problem of normalization, right?
So it's more like how should I keep this?
Yeah, you're asking. You have the requirement. You have a very complex formula or form. You have a very complex form with many fields, and you have to store it somewhere. And you have a lot of optional input fields. And so you're asking now, as if I understand the question correctly, how you should implement it database-wise.
Yeah, the problem, you can have like 7 different types of permits. So depending on the permit, you will have property 1, property 3, and property 6. But I want, most of the time it will be hard-coded, but I want to have a possibility to change it. So.
And how is the data stored right now?
No, we got just this on paper form, and I was thinking for a long time it would be a good project to learn databases and.
But does the customer see all the attributes of this form?
It depending, like you got permits to work, electrical, general, hot work. So depending on the permit, you need different clothing. Like when you go, to the roof, you need a hard hat and I don't know, a ladder. With electrical, you need something else. And I've got like 10 different things which are similar to different forms, but yeah, I wonder if I should store it as to keep a separate table. It will be most of the time the same for the permits, but I want to have a possibility to add something or remove. So if it's better to have a separate table.
That's database modeling, I would say. So in general, you can have this concept of once you have a one-to-many relationship. In a relational database, you would create another table, right? One-to-many requires you to have a secondary table, right? Once you want to have to add things, many things to one item. If you have an end-to-end relationship, you need a join table. There's no way to get around a join table. Okay, so that's it for it. If you have a one-to-one relationship, and I think that's the case in your example, then it's up to you. In theory, you could put everything in one table, right? So you have one huge, gigantic table with 100 columns, and you would be surprised how many databases actually have tables with a really long number of columns. That is absolutely normal.
I was thinking maybe I can store it as a byte word. So
No, just don't try to implement like a binary mask. Just don't do it. If you have the option to have separate attributes, please do. Don't make something special like have one column where you implement a binary mask, having a 0 and a 1 for an attribute. It doesn't help you, right? Null values are not a problem. Large columns, large tables with many columns are not a problem for relational databases. Not at all, right? So you should not worry about it. The only thing that might, so maybe you should start with one table from scratch. Bye-bye. You start with one table, with one gigantic table, and if you want to make the form more user interactive, that is, if you click on the checkbox and then something happens, maybe then it should also be reflected in the database that if you have said, I'm doing, what did you say as an example? An electrician who's filling out the form and then you need some additional fields, then that could be, for example, reflected in another table. That if you have this, then this must be present. And you can, for example, in Rails, you could use validations to ensure that you have valid data, that each object with that attribute specified should have one something, right? So if you have just a number of one-to-one relationships, it doesn't really matter. You can. It's up to you, and don't worry about having a lot of null values in the database. It's no problem at all.
So just a one big table.
Well, you can start with that and iterate from that, and also always just do changes if you need them. That would be my advice. Does it help?
Yeah, sure.
So definitely null values or many null values doesn't hurt a database, not at all. And just don't do binary masks. I can give you an anecdote. There, I learned from another project where they had a messaging app that was getting a message from another server in an XML format. And they had a binary mask for each weekday. So something that should happen on Monday was like you had a binary mask 1 0 1 1 0 0 0 1. And it was indicating if a job was to be done on this weekday, right? And this is just a terrible idea if you use XML, because maybe the person who implemented it was thinking about the size of the message. But in XML, if you encode it in a string, the 1 is encoded as a character anyways, right? So it doesn't really decrease the message size, and it doesn't make any sense to save like a couple of bytes for the pain you would have as a developer to decode and encode this strange binary mask. I mean, you just use XML, there are XML parsers, and then you can make use of them. If you have to do an extra work, if you would use, for example, a binary mask in your table, you would have to do extra work on the application side to decode and encode this super stupid binary mask, right? Does it help?
Yeah.
Cool. Right. Matt, unless Daniel, you have more questions?
No, I will have to leave in a few minutes.
I see. So maybe we can continue on with Matt. Hi.
Yeah, I was just saying that I was thinking maybe with Francisco we could work on some RFM task.
That would make perfect sense, because Francesco is also a Rails developer, and he would be keen to work on that. And I was already telling him about a couple of things that I was doing, which I could introduce if I would share my screen. Do you want me to do that?
Please.
Right. and I will share my screen because I was also very busy on RFM the last couple of days, and I just pushed a branch on RFM which is called Proxy API, which is not properly named. So I had a couple of commits which I put in one branch that are not really related to each other. Because the first thing I wanted to do is to use the same pattern as in Human Connection for RFM regarding server-side rendering and cores. Maybe I will just show you the files changed. So we have, since we have Ember Fastboot deployed, we have server-side front-end rendering. Okay.
Yep.
So it would be great to get rid of the cores, like the cross-origin request policy stuff and so on, if we have a server-side frontend running, and we can just send requests to the frontend, which will act as a proxy and will send it to the backend. So there's a couple of advantages. You can see here, I added HTTP proxy middleware, and this is enough to have in the fastboot have like an HTTP server, and you get the HTTP server out of your fastboot app. Right? You get this Express HTTP server, which seems to be like a module in the fastboot app package. And then you can add some additional middlewares into this HTTP server. Okay. So you can, for example, say the route API will proxy to the backend.
Yep.
So you send a request to /API of the front end domain. And then the server-side rendered frontend will proxy that request to wherever the backend lives. And I did that, and it did just that, and it works perfectly.
Nice.
Which is nice. Daniel, do you understand the reasoning why we have it? Like why we do the proxy?
Yeah, I know why there are problems with cores, but I don't know if you have here some.
Yeah, so when you do cross-origin resource sharing, so that's what RS stands for, resource sharing. So let's say so you have one client app, and it's taking the front end from like a web server. And then the browser is instructed to send a request to another backend, right? Then this backend needs to be, like this backend explicitly whitelists a domain. Otherwise, the backend will reject the request. So when I send a backend request from the client to this backend, the browser will always send, hey backend, I'm coming from this domain here, domain A. Do you know this domain A? And am I allowed to send you some potentially sensitive user data? And then the backend will tell the client, yeah, domain A, I know it. It's like it's part of my own, like I'm instructed to accept CORS requests from originating from that domain. And then the browser says, okay, I will send you my passwords. Okay, so this is a security feature. And you have to you have to configure these cores on the web server. If you send sensitive data to the web server, like where the front end is rendered, this procedure is obsolete because you're always allowed to send back sensitive data to the same domain. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
And that's the whole idea.
Yeah, I mean, Daniel set up a proxy when we were doing stuff with the React front end and the Rails back end.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's basically the same thing. So instead of having this communication here, you proxy everything through the front end, and the front end will talk to the back end as like the man in the middle. How would you say in English? It's communicating with the proxy, with the back end, sorry. The front end is communicating with the back end.
Yeah.
In how would you say in English? There's an idiom for that. If you let me see, in German it's probably Vertreter as a representative.
Yeah, can be.
Okay, I cannot see it, but you see the point, Daniel.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so this is one part of the pull request, and I will take out the commits that are responsible for doing this proxies thing and create a separate pull request, which should be easier to review. I would like to assign this pull request, like either tomorrow or the day after, once I'm finished, to some of you who could give me a code review.
Yep.
And connected to this proxy thing, there's also another. So we are already using Docker. We're using Docker for development.
Yep.
And we have a Docker container called, or a Docker service called full stack, which is doing full stack testing. I renamed this to features, which I think makes more sense because the features folder is having the Cucumber features, and you can run Cucumber features. And in this container features, or in the service features, which is having a container, you send a request to the front end, which is listening on HTTP/front end. Does it make sense? And this was giving a lot of headache before, because if you expose the front end and the back end to the host machine, then you could not be able to run the full stack tests out of this container. Outside of this container, I'm sorry, because the front end would then render a lot of error messages because it can see the back end, but the host machine cannot see the back end under the same URL, which is kind of complicated. Having this proxy, it's making things a lot more easier. Does it make sense? So this will also be another pull request. Once the proxy is deployed, we can also tunnel the requests in our full stack tests through the backend via the front end. This makes sense? Nice.
Yep.
And there's yet another thing which I did. That is, I created an organization on Docker Hub. Since I was using I was working on the Docker containers, which is called Rundfunk mitbestimmen. And there we have our backend and frontend container images. Updated 2 days ago. And I want as a human connection, I also want Travis, the build server, to push those images.
Yeah, I want to get this. We have a Agile Ventures Docker Hub now as well, as inspired by Human Connection. That I'd like to use that as well.
Exactly. So this should work, and
I'll have to go. I will watch it and maybe see you at 8 o'clock.
No problem. I will send you some pull requests for review. Goodbye, Daniel.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Yeah, good to see you.
And I was updating the README to give after these changes. And what else did I do? I think I also added more containers. So we have a couple of services, including pvik, now named Matomo, which is doing analytics. And we have an error reporting service called Sentry. I think both Matomo and Sentry you can host it on your own. and I would like to have all the services that our application is depending on to create like one Docker Compose environment that really starts everything, like including the mail server, including analytics, including error reporting, and then have everything pointing to it. Why do I want to have this? Matt, maybe you already have an idea.
Why you want to have all that stuff running?
In one Docker Compose file.
In one Docker Compose file? Well, I probably because you want the Docker Compose to start all those.
Yeah, sure. That's of course, yes. And I want this in order to be sure that we at some point can transition to Kubernetes, maybe.
Yeah, I was going to say that it sounds like you're preparing for Kubernetes.
Yeah, it's kind of a preparation.
Yeah.
Because we're having our virtual private server, and I kind of forget how to maintain the VPS server. I'm actually just happy that it just works, and emails and so on, it just works at the moment. But I don't know how to really maintain the server. Because I'm not practicing it, and if you would have to set it up, you would have to do all these things manually, and I would really want to have one bundle of images that you can deploy, and you can just throw the Kubernetes configuration into your cloud, and then the magic happens, and then you have RFM running in your cluster, and it's all reproducible and repeatable. And like zero configuration. Yeah, but that's probably for another day. So what I want to do right now is just to have this proxy thing running, which I think is a great pattern, and the automatic deployment of images, which is also kind of preparing for Kubernetes, because Kubernetes wants to have updated Docker images, and to have also be able to test in the Docker environment. I didn't finish that one, so I'm currently making sure that the README works, because somewhere in the README it says you have to run Docker Compose exec full stack bundle cucumber. Here you go, and that doesn't work at the moment. So once this works, I think I will push the branch. Actually, push 3 different branches. One for deployment, one for the proxy, one for I think I forgot, but yeah, like a couple of things that are
related,
but not related.
Yeah. I had I think I've definitely run, like, not recently, but I think I've definitely run the full stack tests with Docker for RFM.
At the moment, I think it works with the current configuration.
Yeah, but then with the new stuff, it would be like there's like breaking changes.
It will probably break. Oh yeah, I forgot. I also implemented multi-stage builds, and that's the reason why it's currently breaking.
Oh, nice.
So we have production somewhere.
This is probably why it's not working for human connection.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, we have now a build and test stage. Which has all the dependencies. And here we have the multi-stage from Ember CLI. Ember CLI has, for example, Chrome installed to be able to run the tests within the container, but we don't need to run the tests in production. So here we just go from Node. Exactly, it's only importing the precompiled stuff.
But you wouldn't be using the production image when you're developing locally anyways, would you? You'd be using the build and test, right?
Yes, I would use build and test.
You just need to like change it to say target build and test?
Yeah, so we have these targets in the Docker Compose file. So full stack testing is, for example, using build and test on the front end. Same this one here. So this is like the default Docker Compose for development. and only if you specify either staging or just that file and not the override, then it will use production.
Yep. Yep.
It's all really confusing sometimes, but yeah, I think I get my head through.
This is working, but it's just not. It just needs to be updated in the documentation for the right.
At first, the test should run in the full stack environment, and they don't at the moment. It's probably just a small issue, and I have to update the README to incorporate the new changes.
Yep.
Yeah, I think you have to run Docker Compose app build. Probably. Yeah, so Docker Compose app / build will create the built-in test Docker images. If you don't do it, it will pull down the latest production image, which will be enough for you to run the whole thing, but will not make you able to run the tests.
Okay. I mean, I understood like the first time that you run like Docker Compose up, it will build it, and then it'll just use like, and unless you've built it like specifically targeting production previously, because then when you run Docker Compose up after that, like it'll use like caching.
If you have in your Docker Compose file a key context, and then you pass it a folder where you have a Docker file, then it will try to build that Docker file. It will not take anything from the web. It will build that Docker file. If you don't want this behavior, you have to remove the context from the Docker Compose. So I have this context in for like the override, which is the default. If you just run Docker Compose up, then it will try to build the Docker file. If you specify Docker Compose -f, Docker Compose YAML, and that's it. Like that's just the base of everything. It will pull down the images from the repository, from the Docker Hub repository, and that's also why I pushed it up there to have it present in the repository.
Right. Okay. That makes sense.
That's what I did. So I was kind of busy on RFM too, and
you can't get enough of Docker over the last few months.
So, huh?
Like finish one Docker task or Kubernetes, and you're like, all right, well, what should I do? Should I do some like Vue.js front end, or should I do some more Docker somewhere?
To be fair, I was working on the search feature on Human Connection today, so I'm also still on the development side.
Yeah.
But I find the deployment and testing pipeline is super crucial for development. And that's something that not many people do. They just want to implement their own feature, and that's it. So I really wanted this to be really streamlined.
I've noticed this. A lot of people try to avoid DevOps if possible.
Yeah, I just want to do everything that no one else is taking care of. Also, the database migration stuff. I think it's super important. For data privacy reasons, there are only 2 people who can do it. So that's why I jumped at the task to do that first, because I'm the only one who has the administration privileges to do that task. And I don't want to postpone it to the future, because people are like really asking, when is the new natural version like when is it online, and so on.
Yeah. People are getting anxious.
Yeah. So that's it from my side.
Yeah. So I guess like I mean, I'm not sure what Francisco's time will look like. Should we have a look at the board for some issues before we wrap up? Or
yeah, sure. Let's. Can you show your screen then?
Yes, I am on an unrelated but also interesting note. I've gotten the Human Connection playlist updated with all the videos now that I
Nice.
Now that I have the add button permanently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it fits the button permanently. Let me share my. Okay, I started my VLC. Share my screen. Faith joined us for a minute, but
Really?
she might be dealing with internet issues because she joined and then left like shortly after. I said, "Oh, Faith has joined us," and then she saw my face and was like, "Ah, no,
Not this guy again.
I don't want to see this guy. He's in every meeting." Okay, so issues. Oh, actually, I guess like pull requests would be a better place to start, right? Like,
oh
if
yeah,
there's
so many dependencies.
pull
Oh,
requests.
so many dependencies. Holy.
Yeah, from 7 days ago until today, it's all dependable.
It's all dependent again. It's like dependencies are updating so quickly.
So this one is one that you this is what you were already talking about.
Yeah. This will be the pull request. I will probably override this branch because I was for simplicity. I was working on the same branch, but I know that there are a lot of commits that are actually not unrelated, and I can put them into separate pull requests. So it's easier for you to code review.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So so far there's not any backend issues that have been started that.
Actually, the mailing feature is something that I would like to have implemented. Set notification when brokers is created. That's the one created by Faith.
This one here? No.
Oh no, this is.
That's the.
Yeah, monthly email list is also something important, but send notification when brokers is created is you want to have the authors of broadcasts, like, or a group of users to be the
moderators.
Like a reviewer for new user data.
Like moderators, right?
Moderators, yeah.
Yeah, I was pairing with this with Faith a little bit at the. I think she started this when she was having that work, like task or something. From creator to moderator.
Yeah, this is also something I have to think of when I do the Kubernetes thing, because right now we have an SMTP mailer program on our VPS, and on Kubernetes that will not be available. For development, it's enough to have Mailhawk, which is like a fail SMTP provider, and you can see it gives you like the mail catcher gem. It gives you a nice web UI, and you can see all the mails delivered in the web UI. For development, that's perfect, but for production, we'll need something else.
Okay, so do you have an idea? I guess I could look at you've given a review on what's still missing for this.
You can see on I think it's almost done. The only thing that's missing is probably a review and the reason why the build server is failing. So it looks like as if the build server is,
the push is passing.
The request is failing, but the push is not. So the branch itself is fine, but in the meantime, the master has been updated with some dependencies, and just the dependencies need to be reviewed. Why are they leading to build failures?
Oh, right. So Siri was the latest person working on this.
Yeah.
Bundle exec rake build
that shouldn't be no problem. But what else? I think there's more to it. Yeah, there's some RSpec tests also failing.
The build RSpec failed. You've already tried rerunning this?
No. Can you check out what's the RSpec failing tests?
Can I restart build?
Yeah, I think you can, but then you will lose the log.
Yeah. I was looking here. bundle exec rake Rubocop exited.
Yeah, but it's not the only thing. RSpec tests are also failing. If you scroll up a little bit, then you can see the reason. Yeah, once more, like a couple of lines more, 6 failures. Okay, here you go. Impression legacy. Blah, 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 blah. Ah, oh no. Oh no, it's like it's dependency update of the
geocoder
server. Oh, okay, that one again. And the queues, the meta queues, so they are related to this pull request. Okay, maybe the RSpec test just has to be changed because Melis queue is not used.
Although, like, the fact that it passed the push and didn't pass the pull makes me think that it's intermittent failure. No,
What do you mean by intermittent failure?
meaning it doesn't fail every time. Like,
I think so. It's not. I think it will fail every time, because Rubocop is definitely because of a dependency update. So you have to fix
but
it.
I mean, this push is running against the same code base.
Yeah, but if you update Rubocop, Rubocop will find code violations in the PR, which weren't there because Rubocop didn't know them before. So it's not an intermittent failure.
So and that doesn't happen as part of this push request.
Yeah, because Rubocop in the push request is outdated, and it will not find it. But if you pull in the latest master where Rubocop is already updated, it will find violations in the code that will be included in the PR.
Yeah.
Which is also not a master because it's still on the PR. All right.
Oh, awesome. So yeah, I mean, I'll wait to see if he reaches out.
Yeah, if anybody, it's now almost 7 p.m. Maybe we can keep this meeting. I know if I leave, the brokers will be stopped. If anybody wants to have a meeting at 7 p.m., please ask and tell them I wasn't available because I wanted to join a meeting which started 1 hour ago.
Cool. No worries.
All right.
Good to see you.
I will see. Then let's close the meeting and see each other soon.
Yeah, I think I'll see you tomorrow, brother.
Yeah, probably. Bye-bye.
Yeah.